Hey everyone, we are live today on YouTube, and I decided it just wasn't right to do a normal episode of the Technicolor Mike B Show as if nothing was special, different about today. Today is the 19th anniversary of 9/11. 19 years. Sometimes it just doesn't feel like it could have been that long ago, that 19 years have really passed. How much our world has changed. How much innocence was lost forever. Can't go back. Why is it the days that we will never forget are the ones filled with tragedy? I remember clearly the Challenger explosion. It was the day the teacher in space, so school children around the country were watching. It was my mom's birthday. So it was supposed to have been like this great day, teacher going into space, go home and have dinner for my mom's birthday, but no, it was the day marred with tragedy. Day I won't forget. Same thing with 9/11. So it was September 2001. I was hoping that I could find some old photos to show what was life like just before 9/11. What was I doing? Where was I? But I looked. I didn't get a digital camera. I didn't have access to photography online or digital pictures until 2002. So yeah, I have a slight gap in my photo album. I moved into my house in 1998. I took some pictures with an old film camera back then so I could show people what my house looked like. And yeah, I couldn't find any pictures. There's a gap from like 2000 to 2002 when I got my digital camera. So yeah, I don't have anything to show what was life like. But I was single, living alone, had been out of school for 5 years. So I'm living on my own for 5 years. I had an office to myself at work. I was still in my first job out of school. Until June of that year, I had someone that I was sharing an office with, but he left to take another job and never got another person sitting in the room. So there I was the morning of 9/11, September 11th, 2001. I'd gotten to work. I think I woke up early that day and said, I'll just go into work early, get an early start. I had a radio in the office. It was tuned to Mix 107.3, the Jack Diamond Morning Show. And I don't remember what project I was working on at the time, what I was doing, if I was just checking emails or going through actively working on a project. But the radio was on the background. I usually tune out the radio. It's just sort of on for the background noise, the distraction. And I remember hearing a story on the radio of a plane crash. And I didn't really think anything of it. Yeah, a plane crash is not something that happens very often, but they happen. And yeah, I just kept going, and then they were talking about it as a mid-air collision and a second plane that had crashed, and they collided with a building. So I'm picturing in my head, okay, I know they're now talking about New York City, and they're talking about two airplanes that had a mid-air collision. So I'm thinking some prop planes, some small airplanes in New York City had a mid-air collision. They crashed into each other, and they fell and hit a building. That's what I'm thinking. That's what other explanation is there for what happened that day if you're in a pre 9/11 frame of mind? Planes had never been used as bombs to hit and destroy buildings. That had never been done before. No one would think of that. So it's like I'm thinking, what could they be talking about? Just hearing a story on the radio about two planes crashing into a building. And after a minute or two of listening to this and hearing what they're talking about, I'm like, all right, I have to find out if there's anyone else in the office that knows what's going on, because clearly I'm not understanding what I'm hearing on the radio. So I walk away from my desk and go down the hall, and the end office, there were 3 or 4 people that were normally in that office. At least 1 or 2 were in that day. And I said, have you guys been listening to the news? They're talking about some mid-air collision in New York where 2 planes have hit a building, the World Trade Center. And they're like, no, what are you talking about? I'm like, I have no idea. And yeah, I don't know exactly how long that conversation lasted, but I went back to my desk, and we didn't have Facebook back then. Facebook wasn't around. I don't know what kind of websites I might have been had access to at the time, but I'm sure I went to like the Washington Post, WTOP, ABC, NBC, major news outlets, anywhere trying to just find out what in the world is going on. And the stories keeps coming in, it keeps developing, and at some point a plane crashes into the Pentagon. So now it's local. It's not just New York, it's Northern Virginia, it's Washington, D.C. And at the time, my brother was working for United out of the United offices in Chicago, and I remember getting an email or 2 from him. I think he was blasting his friends list saying, "Here's what we know that's going on at United. At least 2 planes have been hijacked." But yeah, still in shock of what's going on, and not. I'm sure through some website I was getting some news coverage, some photos of what was going on. Eventually someone in the office got an old TV set in the break room that they turned on, and we were probably like watching Good Morning America, but everyone that was on the floor more or less migrated down to the break room. This all started in the 8 o'clock hours. It's now after 9 o'clock. The events are unfolding, and we're just watching in shock. Still not like they would replay the footage or show the smoking towers or whatever they were doing on the news, and nothing in our world experience prepared us for that day. And being that the Pentagon was hit, the news coverage here was split between the local events, what's happening, what do we need to know about our safety. I guess people saw the fire, the flames, the smoke from the Pentagon around the DC area, and everyone assumed it was a lot closer to them. So it's like there's something burning in DC. This is like, so the news was reporting that there's multiple reports of things going on, a car bomb or something else had happened in DC. And then you're watching the news of the first World Trade Center tower collapsing to the ground. And 30 minutes later, the second tower collapsing to the ground. Yeah, I don't know what time that morning, but by like 11 o'clock, the manager just said, go home. Everyone just go home. We're not going to get anything done. And People were worried about their family, their friends, their kids, trying to figure out the kids being safer in school, staying in school, or the kids being sent home. Where do we have to go? So yeah, I went home. Yeah, like I said, I was single, living alone. So yeah, I went home and turned on the TV set and just stared at the coverage. I'm sure at some point I called home to my parents to find out, to let them know I'm okay, what's going on. Just the the need for comfort and human companionship, and but yeah, that was a day. I might not remember all of the details of everything that happened, but I'm not gonna forget that day. Um, One of my coworkers' friends I went to lunch with frequently. She was in a car accident on the way home. That I guess with everything that was going on, people listening to the news, they're not really tuned into the driving. So yeah, it was a crazy time. I knew people who were on business trips. All the airports were closed and canceled, and people were the rent-a-car agencies had nothing left. So it was like, okay, we'll find a U-Haul, and we'll get a U-Haul truck and we'll drive that home. It's like for days of not knowing how to get home. Say I couldn't imagine if I had been on a business trip. That earlier at that work, I was traveling up to Connecticut and New York on a frequent basis. We had a project for the city of New York putting in a financial management system. I don't know if it launched before the Y2K or if it had launched after that point, but there was a celebration party for the end of the project that was held at the World Trade Center. Although I worked on the project, I'm like, I don't really need to go up to New York to go to the party. So I'd been to New York a few times. I had seen the World Trade Center from a distance, but I'd never been in the any of the towers. As a kid, we had gone to the Empire State Building. That was like the only building that we went up to the top of at the time. So yeah. But yeah, the 9/11 is one of those days that we will never forget. Next year will be the 20th anniversary. How much things have changed. And it's like, but we're still struggling along, and that day impacts our daily lives. It's the whole reason that the TSA was formed. So yeah, no face paint today, no balloons, no jokes, no frightening Friday. Just didn't seem appropriate. But yeah, I think this is a day that we have to remember. And I'm glad that they shifted it to Patriots Day as a focus. I'm a balloon twister. Many of the past years, I've been working with friends at one of the local military bases, doing an event for that. There's been concerts and other events planned for the 9/11 commemoration in the area and to celebrate the military. But obviously, with the pandemic, a lot of those events have been canceled. So yeah, this year, not marking it with doing an event, a charity event for the military or something else. But in some ways, life has to go on, and our resilience has to be there. But in another way, we just have to remember. So, for those of you old enough to remember 9/11, share your story. Let people know. Let them know it happened. I was realizing 19 years, all the kids in school through seniors in high school, they're too young. They weren't even alive when 9/11 happened. That even like a lot of the college kids, they were 1 or 2, 3 years old when it happened. Probably not quite old enough to remember that day. So yeah, a whole generation of people that have been born after 9/11. That's all I want to do. Share my memories of the day and some of the thoughts of the world around us. So, thanks for watching. This is Technicolor Mike B signing out.